said, I'm redoing my website. I want to make it scrollable. What he means by scrollable is a website that's designed to be viewed on a mobile device, an iPad, an iPhone, Android or something, where the screen is quite small and narrow and you just scroll down and down and down and down. You've probably seen these websites. They're designed usually with bands of colour, different information in each band. So he wanted a scrollable site. Now there are a couple of tips and techniques that you need to know if you're going to have a scrollable website. One is that in the same way that if someone cuts a coupon out of a magazine, they're more likely to do it if there's a scissors symbol or the words cut here, because people are very obedient, they're more likely to do it if you tell them what you want them to do. Most scrollable site templates don't include an arrow that says scroll down, and people won't always automatically bother to scroll unless you tell them that's what you want them to do. So there's a first piece of advice: add a graphic. And then I thought, well, he wants a scrollable site. I wonder if I ought to have a scrollable site. I've seen them more and more and more, and you've probably done the same. But I looked at my Google Analytics and they tell me how many people view my website on a desktop or laptop computer and how many people view it on a mobile device. And I found out in my case, 95% of people still view it on a large screen. Therefore, the design of my site is optimised to look good on a large screen. It still works on a mobile device. It's responsive, everything, and the navigation and the design rejigs itself. It works perfectly well on an iPad or an iPhone, but it isn't that scrollable design where everything is layers, one on top of the other, on top of the other. I've got a client who has 58% of his business, analytics show, view it on his site on a mobile device. He is a personal trainer. I'm a B2B business, a business to business. Businesses are my clients. He's a B2C business. Consumers are his clients. And I wonder if that's one of the differences. If your site is viewed mostly by people on a desktop or laptop machine, that informs the design that you will use that's best for them. If most of them view it on a mobile device, then you need this scrollable look and feel. Do you need to rethink the format of your website? Check your analytics and you'll find out. Unlike a book or magazine where people start at the beginning and they turn every page and they get to the end, people can view a website in any order you like. Say that again, they can view a website in any order they like. They don't necessarily start at the home page and then work their way through bit by bit by bit until they get to the end. So each page needs to stand alone. They might get bored, they might not read all the pages, so each page needs to have its own call to action. And people might navigate their way around the site in any order. They won't have read what you put on the first page if they land on your site on the third page or the last page. So it all needs to make sense out of context. Now, people like finding their own way around a website. They don't like being told, this is page 1, this is page 6. I know websites don't work like that, but people have power to navigate their own route, to choose their own journey through your website. And you need to make it easy for them if you've got certain information there that you think they desperately ought to find. People like to interact with websites. They like clicking buttons. They like choosing their own route and customizing their own journey. So buttons rather than text link, coloured buttons that say continue or next are a really good way of getting people to take that journey. Now, I recently wrote a website for a solicitor, and instead of having all the solicitor's services spread out in the top level navigation, we instead divided his services into services for individuals and services for businesses. If someone visiting the site's the individual, they click a graphic button and they only see the services that are designed for them. If someone's a business, they only click the button that's relevant to business advice. and they find all the information relevant to them. Estate agents are usually really good at this. They know they've got 4 markets. They've got buyers, sellers, renters and letters. And they will have buttons or graphics so that someone landing on their website only finds the bit of information that applies to them. They're not going to read anything else. Here's the sad thing. Nobody reads every page of your website but you. Next question. Do you grant the people the power to navigate their own way around the website? And does each page of your website that they might land on, however they get there, stand alone in its own entirety? Next tip. 3 is a magic number. Picture a stool, a 3-legged stool, and picture a 4-legged chair. Now, try and push one of them over. The chair falls over quite easily. Push it in any one of 4 directions, it will fall over. The stool, you can't push it over whichever direction you turn. It's much harder, even though it's only got 3 legs compared with the 4-legged chair. Now, what's that got to do with anything? There is a psychological theory called Gestalt, which is to do with balance. It's to do with the fact that if you see 4 dots arranged in a square shape, in your mind's eye you see a square. It's not a square, it's 4 dots. The human brain fills in the blanks. 3 has more balance to the human brain than 4. Which means, on your website, if you're writing copy, a list of bullet points in odd numbers seems more balanced than a list in even numbers. So write things in a list of 3, 5 or 7, don't write 2, 4 or 6. It will feel naturally more complete. And when you're writing in 3s, think of Veni Vidi Vici, he came, he saw, he conquered, or think of education, education, education. That's a political soundbite from here in the UK. People's brains resonate more comfortably with the idea of things in 3s. So does your web content tap into the power of 3? Some people write their copy or their headings all in capital letters. What has become the norm in internet etiquette is that capital letters count as shouting. And they're harder to read. Now, the reason capital letters are harder to read is once you've learned how to read, you read a whole word in one go. You don't read it letter by letter and spell it out in your own mind. How you recognise the letters is by their outline, by their shape. So a letter J has a descender that moves below the line. The letter K has an ascender that moves above the line. Some letters don't have ascenders and descenders, but if you imagine a word like juggling, it goes down, across, and then up, and then across, and then down again. Juggling has a particular shape. And when you're reading, you might read that word and you'll recognise it very instantly. But if it's in capital letters, it looks like an oblong, it looks like a rectangle. Words in capitals, because they're all the same shape, actually slow down comprehension. They're harder to read. So why would you write all in capital letters if what your objective is to communicate your message to your audience? Have you overdone the capital letters on your website? Elegant websites these days have a white or pale background. Reversing the text so that the text is white or pale on a black or a dark coloured background is harder to read. This in print terms used to be called WOB, white on black. And we do find that harder to read. And web standards today require there is high contrast between your text and your background. And the reason for that is here in the UK, there are disability discrimination laws, and screen readers will pick out the text only if it's in high contrast so that people with poor vision can read the text that's on your webpage. So it's part of the law. But anyway, why wouldn't you make it easier for your audience to read what it is that you've written? Is your site background pale? Elegant? Does your text on your website show good contrast?